nation that you call yours, people can do what has been done to our children in West Cameroon. I call it West Cameroon because you will never take it out of our mouths again, because that is a territory in which we believe in freedom. To go out on the street and demonstrate is a basic right for us. And that is why we are saying that there are two Cameroons that came together. If you are telling us, like a state minister stood here last year, told us that what happened in Cameroon is like dropping a few cubes of sugar into a basin of water. Who is the sugar and who is the water? I'm asking. In Zimbabwe, nation that you call yours, people can do what has been done to our children in West Cameroon. I call it West Cameroon because you will never take it out of our mouths again, because that is a territory in which we believe in freedom. To go out on the street and demonstrate is a basic right for us. And that is why we are saying that there are two Cameroons that came together. If you are telling us, like a state minister stood here last year, told us that what happened in Cameroon is like dropping a few cubes of sugar into a basin of water. Who is the sugar and who is the water? I'm asking. In Zimbabwe.
Hello, good morning, or good afternoon. This is Comrade Funton Daniel. I'm here with Comrade Christophe Messner, who is also joining me live for this very important broadcast or discussion. And there will be some hotline numbers that you can reach me, and the number is just underneath of me, where we were gonna get some calls. And thank you for joining me live. Before I welcome Comrade Christophe, it seems Congress is going after La Republique du Cameroun. Well, you just released the info that the Congressional Research Committee just hit La Republique again on the second time, or many times as I could say. So, but we're going to talk more about that. And thank you again. Welcome for this live show broadcast.
Thank you also very much, Comrade Daniel, for inviting me. Always an honor to be on your show.
Thank you. If you are just joining us live, make sure you hit the share button. And it's about 12:20 here in the great state of Texas, here in the United States. And I'm sure it's 12:20 in Ambazonian capital of Boya. And I want to also appreciate our fellow listeners that are joining us live in this broadcast here in the United States, and those in South America, those in Europe, Asia, Russia, and South America, Ground Zero, and in neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun, South Africa, wherever you are. So I just want to thank you for joining us live in this broadcast, and thank you again, Comrade, for taking to join me live again. It is a pleasure having you all the time. Comrade, are you getting me?
I hear you clearly.
Okay, the line is yes.
Yes. You don't start with a question as usual. You were talking about the newest paper from the American Congress. I think United States are realizing more and more that the culprit, the perpetrator, is French Cameroon, and the whole concept of France-Afrique behind it. And the Ambazonians are rather the victims in this. And it's a good sign when they call the name Ambazonia already, because that is indicating some respect for a new identity, or how should I call it, formation of restoring aspirations of something which have existed in the past. Southern Cameroon, or British Trust Territory of British Southern Cameroons, a restoring of a once given independence, which was declared on a different date than for French Cameroon. And when I say new identity, of course, it is not completely new, because it is something which has to do with with colonial history and post-colonial history, and how it coined the identities of the people there. And of course, the people is never only coined by colonizers, but by themselves. So when I speak about identity of Ambazonia, I mean, it's not only the identity to be out of Cameroon, but also to open a new chapter in law and in governance, and to say a real final no to that kind of neo-colonial dictatorship and centralism which the Biya regime represents. And I would really like to hear from every Ambazonian and those who still call themselves Southern Cameroonians to adopt this Ambazonian identity and to call yourself by this new name. Actually not so new, it's since 1984 at least, because it underlines that you want to leave neo-colonial and colonial history behind you, and you want to open a new chapter. And you want to create something for the future where the dominance of former colonizers or present colonizers is not dictating what you want to have, but you are really self-determined and self-governing and well-governed. So that is my sort of line, behind the name Ambazonia, because I know many people still don't like the name Ambazonia and they cannot identify with it. Yeah, but I really want to be all Cameroonians have a more positive attitude to it, because it stands for something completely new, which means a complete exclusion of neo-colonial dominance. And the aspiration to have not only freedom and independence, but a really, really good freedom and good independence with the best possible government. So I believe truly that both Ambazonia and French Cameroon in the long-term future, they can be the best nations in the world. Yeah? That's my approach. I don't just aim to independence. I aim very high. I aim to the best possible way of governance, self-governance. Yeah, and it sounds maybe contradictory because I'm a white guy, and why am I so strongly behind it? But for me, it's crucial, because I learned a lot in political history and so on, that every people in the world, has a right to self-determination and to well-governance. And Ambazonia can, put an example here. It can say, we get out of the bottomless pit, from the bottom of the bottoms, back up to the highest. Yeah, we can really revolutionize. That's the message. And I wish that every people in the world. Yeah. Does that make sense, what I said, comrade?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems we're not getting you sound, uh, comrade. We're
Oh,
not getting you sound clearly. Hello,
oh, I'm sorry. Hear you clearly?
comrade. It seems we're not
Yeah.
getting you. Check your sound.
I don't know. My sound is, my volume is fully on.
Okay, maybe bring it closer to you.
Maybe if I put out the charger cable of the phone, I don't know. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, yeah, I can.
Yeah, maybe you just continue.
Uh, Let me see.
I know
Uh,
last show there was a little sound in the picture. But maybe, comrade, if we cannot solve the technological problems, then we solve these problems first and we make the next show tomorrow. Can you hear me?
yes, excellent. All right. Let me read what the Congressional Committee wrote. Let me just read. They said people and politics. Okay, let me just read. Just give it a moment. It says Cameroon is divided. It's a diverse, resources rich country of 28.5 million people, formed through a merger of two separate colonized entities, one administered by France and one by England. Cameroon is largely French speaking with minority population of English speaking, concentrated in the west, and perceived marginalization among the Anglophones has long provoked demand for a political decentralization as well as call for common activists for an independence of the English-speaking region of Cameroon, predominantly Christians, Muslims, comprising an estimated 20% of the population, are concentrated in the north, which is generally poorer and less economically developed than the south. President Paul Biya, aged 88 years, is Africa's oldest head of state and one of the longest serving leaders. He won an election to another 7th term in 2018 and has not clearly has no clear successor. His administration has long restricted freedom of speech, assembly, and government gradually has been used conflict in the northwest and terrorize the people of Southern Cameroon. That is a congressional. It says it is a merger of two separate colonial entities. And that now brings me to the question that I continue to ask is, the United Nations Resolution 1514 XV. It specifically says the territory that belongs to the colonial should be given their rightful independence, irrespective of the contextual population. In this regard, Equatorial Guinea is not 1/10 of the population of Southern Cameroon. Yet they have their independence. Why can't we, the United Nations Resolution 1514, as Congress respectively state here, that is made up of two colonial entities. Why is it that too difficult for the United States to specifically call for the resolution 1540 XV be implemented or be looked into? Why is it so hard for the United States?
I think the United
Go ahead.
The United States have never been a colonizer in Africa. And what the former colonizers, France and Britain, did with Cameroon, the contract, which led, to former Southern Cameroons having had only the option to join, independence by joining, which is actually a contradiction in itself, and led to the joining of French Cameroon. All these post-colonial politics is still regarded a domain of European powers, and USA is very cautious, when it comes to former colonial policies. And although it is now the biggest military might in the world, there are many, many secret dependencies between Britain and the United States, or let us say the former empire. So when we highlight the right, the UN-given right of self-determination for the people of former Southern Cameroon, we have to see that Article 1514 is more directed to indigenous peoples. It's more directed to, having bigger nations respecting regional self-governance. But it doesn't really mean that everybody should get a full nation, yeah? So the US is very careful with that and says, we don't want to interfere into the internal matters of the established nation of Cameroon. And it's also in Africa. So let us rather have France and Britain the last word. So that is so my estimation, all in all. And we should rather look at the specific geographic location of Ambazonia right now, that it is so squeezed in between the hegemony of France Afrique, in quotation marks, and the big Nigeria. And Nigeria still, there's a lot of British influence there, and they also have a lot of tribes and conflicts internally and so on. But the real will, of the superpowers, of the big powers and the former colonizers, to allow the African peoples each real independence is very limited, unfortunately. And the line of thought behind it is that the bigger the unions are, the more or the better you can control them. As we also have seen that France is into the ECOWAS a lot and has prevented that the ECOWAS can establish an own currency zone, for example. Well, it would be very, very nice for Ambazonia if it could join a true African currency zone. But you see how much the fingers of France are in everything concerning her former colony. So when we look to Cameroon right now and the many internal problems mostly created by that kind of proxy dictatorship and tribalist rule of the Gulu and Beti, we have to clearly see that a majority of the Francophones and other tribes like Bamileke in the northerners, this majority, will always play out to the disadvantage of the Ambazonians. So any federalist, anyone who says, yeah, let's make 10-state federalism in Cameroon, they don't take into account that this majority of the Francophones, they're not really interested in a well-governing of Ambazonia. And even if Ambazonia would get a really good way of regional autonomy, yeah, a really special status, yeah, it is not sufficient for the Ambazonians to reach true well-governance, because these dependencies are just too strong. The French Cameroonian side will always say, no, Limbe does not need any big harbor. We have a harbor in Douala. So everybody has to drive to Douala. Yeah? And then when it's about excavation of resources, Yaoundé will say, okay, yeah, you have regional self-governance, but we have all the equipment to run excavation technology. And so we will deliver it from Yaoundé. And so on the economic field, the domination from the French side, will continue if the Ambazonians do not go for the full independence. And that is so difficult to get it through into the heads of the former colonizers and even the United States. So what I would recommend, you have to forge an anti-France-Afrique alliance of states, of African states, who really know what's going on. And you need to strengthen Africa itself. The USA can be helpful in understanding and so on, but they will not bring the breakthrough, in my estimation. Yeah? Don't expect too much from it. It's really a call which goes to the Africans now, to themselves, and say, we want to be independent now. We want to rule ourselves in our own ways. And that's what Ambazonia has to join. You need to have allies inside Africa. It's a difficult work. But there's definitely anti-French potential in Africa growing. Yeah? Because people get more educated and also more pissed, about the permanent French influence. And also they invite China now to rob all the resources. So this potential is growing, in my estimation. And you need to think strategically and say, oh yeah, Ambazonia cannot achieve everything out of its own. Yeah, we need allies. For example, Kenya, Rwanda, the Gambia, Egypt, even North African states, which are more developed, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, all the English-speaking countries, even the Portuguese-speaking countries, they also don't like neocolonialism. You have to make your diplomats travel there and meet the decisive person. You need to forge, to smith these alliances. Yeah? That's how I see it all in all.
All right.
How do you?
All right. Thank you, comrade, for bringing up that point, and I am gonna.
Nation that you call yours, people can do what has been done to our children in West Cameroon. I call it West Cameroon because we will never take it out of our mouths again, because that is a territory in which we believe in freedom. To go out on the street and demonstrate is a basic right for us. And that is why we are saying that there are two Cameroons that came together. If you are telling us, like a state minister stood here last year, sugar and who is the water. I'm asking
in Zimbabwe.
Yes, hello?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring this image and then you watch. It's from the member of Parliament for South Africa. Okay, so just
nation that you call yours, people can do what has been done to our children in West Cameroon. I call it West Cameroon because you will never take it out of our mouths again, because that is a territory in which we believe in freedom. To go out on the street and demonstrate is a basic right for us, and that is why
one said to me, if you want us to vote for you in 2024, you must abandon this thing of foreigners. Now I'm prepared to go home. Now I'm fine. I will never take a platform and denounce Africans. I will never do it. If it means votes are going, let them go. Now I'm prepared to go home. But to take a platform and please white minority by pointing a finger at my other fellow black brothers, I'm not going to do that. When I see a Nigerian or a Zimbabwean or a Congolese or Ghanaian, I see myself. EFF can commission internal research to see to what extent is this thing hurting the EFF. But I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared to take a platform and say foreigners must go home. I would rather not be a president of South Africa. I will be a president of my children at home. We'll practice cabinet there. No, I don't want. I must go and tell these hungry Zimbabweans to leave here. And when I tell them to leave, I send them to where? To die. To die. I would rather die with them than to allow them to die alone. If this thing has cost us municipalities, and there are people who say I must resign, I will resign. For Africans, I will resign. For black people, I will resign. I have no problem. I saw some tweets saying, no, the CIC must step down. If it's for this, I'm ready. If you are against it now on the basis that I support Africans, let it be. I don't care. What makes me at night is that white people in this country say they are prepared to work with everyone except the EFF, except Julius Malema. I sleep at night. The enemy is not happy with me. I don't want the enemy to be happy with me. And the enemy has accepted that it has got no control over me. It doesn't control me. I've not taken its money. The state can use its own institutions to try and threaten us and do all manner of things.
And must fight until victory. The people of Cameroon must rise against the puppet regime of Paul Biya and usher in a dispensation that will respect all people of Cameroon, including those that come from Ambazonia. We call for maximum stability in Zimbabwe.
Good.
Let me see.
I think we better talk
We
about it.
also condemn the killing of children in Cameroon, which continue to be led by the illegitimate puppet of France, Paul Biya, who has been president since 1982. All Africans must reject and disassociate from state-sponsored violence like it's happened in Nigeria and Cameroon. The youth of Nigeria must not retreat in their militancy and must fight until victory. The people of Cameroon must rise against the puppet regime of Paul Biya and usher in a dispensation that will respect all people of Cameroon, including those that come from Ambazonia. We call for maximum stability in Zimbabwe.
That was Melema, if I pronounce it right. So, what do you take on him, on his position? I mean, he raised an important point, and I put the initial video about him speaking, and there he emphasized the importance that they are requesting him not to speak about outside South Africa, in which that's why I bring that point, and follow this other second video in which he specifically talk about Ambazonians. And what do you take on his positions? Why is it that only the legislative branch of government are speaking? Why is the executive branch just remain muted? Because if you look critically throughout the world, the executive branch of government is muted. None of them is speaking up. But if you look here, U.S. Congress here in the United States is speaking, is writing, is publishing research. In Britain, the parliament is writing, speaking. But however, the executive branch, that is the arm that is responsible for taking action, it remains muted. What can we do to make this executive branch not to remain muted? Thank you.
Yes, comrade, as you can see, it takes a courageous leader like Malema from South Africa to speak out frankly and honestly and highlight that he is in Africa. He is, of course, solidary with all Africans and against any type of colonialism or neocolonialism. And it is very good to hear that he solidarizes with the Ambazonians against the puppet regime of Biya. That's a clear position, and of course, all governments in Africa should have that position. But as you know, many governments or government members in Africa are bought over by either neo-colonial powers or just by greed. And they're not in solidarity with the suffering people. And so the recipe against too much influence from Europe and Africa or corrupt elites is very simple. It just needs courage. It needs courage of individuals to speak out the truth, and also to persecute corrupt members of parliament, or you need to clean up the stable. It's very simple. But the difficulty is then that unfortunately those who are so corrupt have the most money, and then they can pay the best lawyers and so on. So that is the difficult part in politics all over the world, to catch the black sheep, that's our language saying, but you know what I mean. You need to fish out the gangsters from the government, and there are also a lot of gangsters like above the governments now. They are real plutocrats. They are billionaires. And I don't want to say that everyone who has a lot of money is corrupt and everyone who has a lot of power is corrupt. It's not automatically like that, There are also some responsible minds among them. But they are, I would say, rather a minority, because first, they had acquired so much wealth, and you need to ask, how did they do that? Were there fair prices, or was it a rip-off, from which they profited? So it's good, to see leaders like Malema in South Africa to stay a person of integrity and speak out the truth. It's needed, and you need to make many phone calls behind the scenes and ask each important person, to give a little more. yeah, to speak out, to not tolerate anymore how neo-colonizers are, opening a chapter of colonization 2.0, yeah, or 3.0. Now, just by other means, by financial means and economic. You really have to speak out against the IMF and the World Bank practices and the corruption in the African Union, of course. They're just so corrupted by France, it's just unimaginable. It's just so terrible. I mean, just take the fact alone that a Biya, a dictator, who is in office in the 7th term, okay, and still regarded officially as a head of state internationally. Can you see how much corruption it is? That they take him as something official at all, yeah. Usually, Interpol and ICC, they should do everything to catch him, get him behind bars. He violated the constitution for 30 years or more. Yeah, it's a crime syndicate, robbers. There's nothing else. It's all about bribery and robbery. It's just who gets the biggest piece of the cake. That's the whole life objective.
Okay.
Really, I how do I say? I know that there's a saying, yeah, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the tendency in this saying, very, very correct. But it's not an automatism that everybody who has a lot of power gets totally corrupted. In truth, history also has shown that there were some exceptions of good kings or good presidents, who still had some kind of moral compass and who were refusing the bribes, yeah, and who were not willing to rob the people and to work against the people. It's also possible. And with the good people, you need to connect. Don't just watch on Facebook, on social media what people are doing. Yeah, it will never get better if you always expect from the others what they are doing. When a people rises up, it means like every individual citizen has to rise up and do something for it. Yeah. All right.
All right. See, let me bring you to this point. This is a U.S. state representative speaking here.
Yeah.
That is. Three.
Judd, if you are somebody from West Africa, from parts of Central Africa, of course you likely do know about the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon, but this war does seem to get very little attention in the international media. It does seem to be relatively less well known than, say, what's happening in Tigray. Why is that?
Well, I think that it's been neglected, and that's been a real tragedy. And the reasons are pretty self-explanatory. This is a very complex crisis in a medium-sized country, and it's been simmering since 2016, 2017. And so most of the international media, not your program, of course, doesn't spend a lot of time on Africa. And so they're focused on Ethiopia or the Sahel or Nigeria. These are easier to convey to international communities what the stakes are. But Cameroon ends up getting short shrift. I would note that the international community, diplomats, the U.S. Congress, Africans are engaged on this topic and on this crisis, but they're not having much effect.
So what can the regional community, obviously France and Cameroon have a good working relationship.
Cameroons that came together. If you are telling us, like a state minister stood here last year, told us that what happened in Cameroon is like dropping a few cubes of sugar into a basin of water. Who is the sugar and who is the water? I'm asking.
Cameroon. The youth of Nigeria must not retreat in their militancy and must fight until victory. The people of Cameroon must rise against the puppet regime of Paul Biya and usher in a dispensation that will respect all people of Cameroon, including those that come from Ambazonia. We call for maximum stability in Zimbabwe.
Community actually do to create some kind of resolution, to work towards some kind of ceasefire?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of challenges, right? First of all, the government so far has only made very superficial concessions. It's really dragged its feet. And on the side of the Anglophones, well, it's very divided, very fragmented. You've got elements that are for peace, just the cessation of conflict. You've got elements that want a new federal or confederal arrangement, and then you've got the secessionists. And some of them can be very hardline, very violent, attacking civilians, attacking each other. And so this has been difficult because who do you negotiate? I think the international community, though, and we've seen the Swiss do this a little bit, can bring these sides together to set up some agreed upon standards and agreed upon benchmarks for moving towards peace, but we're going to have to see a more robust and higher level engagement if we want to move forward.
And from France's perspective, they're unlikely to put that much pressure on Cameroon at this point in time. Cameroon has been very useful to France in terms of fighting terrorism. It's been very useful in terms of welcoming refugees from the Central African Republic. So Paris, Emmanuel Macron, they're unlikely to rock the boat too much at this time.
Yeah, you nailed it, right? Cameroon's an incredibly important counterterrorism partner for French. It's also important for the Central African Republic. And President Paul Biya of Cameroon has this long relationship with Paris, going back decades. So they're unlikely to upset the apple cart. And finally, and we see this with Paris's relationship across the region, they don't want to do things in a public manner. They don't want to potentially embarrass their former colonies. So everything is quiet. Everything is sort of behind the scenes, and it's not to say they haven't condemned some of the human rights abuses or called for dialogue, but it has been very muted in general, given what the problems are.
I think, comrade, I think you can listen from that's the U.S. representative speaking through CNN and emphasize that the problem here is the fragmented members of the Southern Cameroon representative to come to a common ground that can have one single representative. And he emphasized the issues and France being masterminded not to embarrass its colonial territory, La Republique du Cameroun, and prefer that discussion be held behind a closed door so that they cannot understand the position of France, and blocking every aspect of conversations to be carried on. And you can exactly listen from the frustration from the State Department officials. Now, the key question is, I think Resolution 1514 should be the key aspect be put on the front of discussion, because the Resolution 1514 clearly specifies what they should have done in colonial aspect. So therefore, it called for decolonization. It did not call for partial decolonizations. And so therefore, the people of Southern Cameroon met the criteria of decolonization, which is Resolution 1514 XV. That should have been fully implemented. And that is what the people of Southern Cameroon are asking. But however, you can listen from the write-up of the Congressional Research Block that has specifically stated some of the clear differences. So, Resolution 1514 of the United Nations should be a clear path to decide whether does it allow that the people of Southern Cameroon should live with La Republique du Cameroun, and not forcing the people of Southern Cameroon on the personal egoistic needs. Whether we want to satisfy the interests of France, or whether a certain area want a federation, or whether a certain area want a complete independence. But the key point is to present United Nations Resolution 1540 should be the key document to decide. Because if United Nations Resolution 1540 is the main key document, then we will ask now, should Britain have requested a partial certain territory to join La Republique, under an independent nation to join La Republique? Why? What was the key criteria that the people of Southern Cameroon did not meet the standard? That is why they were deprived of their sovereign identity. I think that should be the key de facto or key point to be presented and let dwell on. But however, I still go back again to the key point. The executive branch of government of international community are muted. None of them is speaking up, except through interview for a special representative, as you can see from the CNN. That's somebody from the State Department, and he's speaking as member of the State Department, although he's not clearly fully speaking as a U.S. Even though he's the representative of the U.S. government, but he's speaking on his own position, on his own point of view. But they should have put forth, like you see from the U.S. congressional write-up that you just see, you know. Let's bring one more.
Yes, comrade. Please.
Let's listen to this before you chip in.
Okay.
On avait la possibilité de les intégrer directement dans le système francophone, qui était celui de la majorité du peuple, 80%. Mais je crois que les pays sont soucieux aujourd'hui d'affirmer leur identité. Et c'est pour ça que nous mettons sur pied un statut spécial qui reconnaît la spécificité de la zone anglophone, mais elle reste dans l'intégrité territoriale du Cameroun. Ça donne beaucoup de progrès.
Please, if you, we understand.
Not very good in French, but let me bring this U.S. Senate point. Just hold on. Let me bring U.S. Senate.
And have established a Potemkin institution.
Listen to this.
Weren't really doing anything to bring the two sides together. Could you elaborate on that? Because you ran out of time before.
Sure, yes, sir. I understand the Cameroonian government established several commissions, and I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name of it, whether it's the Multicultural Institution for National Reconciliation or something, which on the face of it, there have been a couple of these, but they have not been provided adequate budget, and they have not really done anything. Because what the country needs more than anything else is a genuine, open dialogue, probably to include the diasporas of the Cameroonians, because they have a great deal of interest in this. Because, sir, what's happening, both sides are becoming further and further radicalized. Unfortunately, I believe that the president of Cameroon is being told by his hardliners that he can win this thing militarily. There is no way that they're going to win this militarily. The violence is going to get worse in the northwest and the southwest. The arm for an arm, literally an eye for an eye, and the whole world will be blind there. The violence will spread to the West Province. It may even spread to the Littoral Province, which is the large city of Douala. So there has to be something. We are very, very energetically speaking with our allies. That's why I said that we just had in the Security Council this Monday what the United Nations calls an ARIAS, where it's an open debate, and it's so clear that everybody wants to move forward on this. Are sanctions on the table? Everything's on the table moving forward. But we have to bring this situation to an end. Else, there's a possibility of what happened in Nigeria with Boko Haram. Started as a small movement, and now look at it. And it'd be disastrous for the region if the Cameroonian government turned this thing into yet another type of Boko Haram.
Or Boko Haram could come back into Cameroon. Well, how do you mentioned, that it appears to be spiraling out of control because the more the security forces clamp down, the more resistance there is in the Anglophone region. So what can we do that we're not already doing?
Well, like I said, the best we can do for right now is just work with our allies to really make the Cameroonian government understand the need for a real dialogue. And if that doesn't happen relatively quickly, then we have to look at the array of other tools we have in our toolkit, because, frankly, the possibility of sanctions is always there. But it's always better to work in concert with our friends before we go in that direction, because the frustrating thing is it is in the interest of everybody to have a national dialogue. The situation will not end militarily. Each day, the atrocities will get worse and worse.
Is the permanent separation of the two regions.
There is one thing that I pick up on these conversations. That is the U.S. Senate representative, and he said, despite the ongoing, what is that United States is not actually doing, and he asked the last question: permanent separation. Let me bring back the message again. Listen.
Will not end militarily. Each day, the atrocities will get worse and worse.
Is the permanent separation of the two regions a possibility?
Sir.
Exactly. Permanent separation of the two regions. And that is the point. That's the point. Why is it so challenging for the world to recognize that separation from La Republique is the key problem why the fighting is going on? Why is the State Department remain muted?
Because the powers, the big powers, aren't in the United States. They fear that sub-Sahara Africa will break up into many nations, and then they would not be controllable anymore, and then they would not be able to excavate so many resources for peace anymore. And you see that the United States, both Tibor Nagy and John Devermont, they're using the narratives of France Afrique. They say Anglophone crisis, they say secession, they say such a complex situation, and they call Biya a government, a head of state, that could be influenced by kind of sanctions or diplomatic interventions and so on, Although they know very much, the Biya regime cannot be influenced because they are doing what France wants. And we need to contradict John Devermont when he says the situation is so complex and Ambazonia are so divided. And we need to say clearly that one thing is very, very simple in this conflict, and that is the fact that French Cameroun annexed Ambazonia, and Ambazonia annexed nobody. And it is clearly the perpetrator, 100%, French Cameroun and France, who are maltreating Ambazonia. And Ambazonia may be divided inside, politically have several fractions, but at least you should ask, how can we make a new referendum, a new poll? How can we ask the Ambazonians what they want? That's the first step which you need to do. And if you really respect the sovereignty of people and the nation, you need to ask the people first, especially when you are an American and you base your constitution on we the people. But you see how the American diplomats, they are all influenced by French diplomats. And behind the scenes, I guarantee you, yeah, the French diplomats, they kick with their elbow into T-Bernat and say, oh, don't be stupid, there's so much money involved. Huh? Don't talk against France. And you can see, he did not mention even the word France here. And not China either. So it's all like diplomatic blah blah on a higher level. So I can only repeat, the philosophy of strength is the only thing which gets you out of this. Ambazonia needs to show maximum strength, both on the defense and the diplomatic level. And strength means that you don't compromise your position and that you smith alliances with other African nations which also want to kick France out of Africa. Yeah. And you should stop to hope so much from the Europeans, from Switzerland, from the United States. Just go there and teach them the truth. Because it is actually true that many regular people in Europe, in America, they wish Ambazonia well. They just don't have the power. The regular people don't have the power. It's the conspirators in the upper echelon, you know, which are still doing neocolonialism. Sorry, comrade, I think we have some echo now in the line.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, the echo is.
We leave it. Comrade, we leave it for today. We have to solve a bit technological problems, you know.
Yeah, I think.
And we need to invite more Ambazonians to join into the show and also speak out their opinion. I don't want to just be the only one.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for joining me. I think I don't know why we're having this echo. I was trying to see if I can identify the problems, and so.
I think probably because you have 4 screens in your one screen, and you need to click out the one which is for Facebook, I guess.
Let me see. Let me wait just a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Hello?
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, maybe we can take 1 or 2 calls, then if somebody can call. I gave the number, so if somebody can call and join us, maybe they have 1 or 2 questions to ask, then we can call them today. But I don't see anyone calling.
Yeah, you have an echo in your own voice now.
Well, if anybody has a question or input or contributions, can call the number on the screen, 817-376-7655. You can call that number through WhatsApp and see if you have any questions or contributions to ongoing discussion about the Southern Cameroon question. So if you can just call if you have some contribution or question to ask. And thank you. Someone just asked, who is this guy talking? Comrade. Comrade Christophe Messner is an Ambazonian. He is very vested and he has been contributing for the ongoing struggle Maybe you haven't known more about him. He's a very, very wonderful person, and he has been doing a very great job. Maybe you haven't known him, but I know sometimes we come on the broadcast and we talk, we carry on conversations. And so he's well vested on the question of Southern Cameroon. He's been working very hard, contributing, writing. I mean, I cannot imagine how. But let him speak of himself. They're asking you. I think the person asking is Faith. Faith is asking, who is this guy talking? So, comrade, come on.
Yeah, thank you very much. You said kind things about me. My name is Christoph Messner. Yeah. I'm a German married to an Ambazonian, and I was in Ambazonia 3 times. I only had very good impressions, and I worked for the American International Santa Monica University there, and you know, all the people were so kind, and I have so many good memories, and you know, that motivated me a lot to engage also political after dictator Biya was cutting the internet in 2016. And I thought to myself, you know, pedagogical engagement is not enough. We need to have political engagement also to get this dictatorship and neocolonialism finally out of that area, and beautiful country. And, you know, I have experienced that it doesn't matter from which tribe you are. You are very, very special people and very humorous, musical, intelligent. You know, you have good taste. You have the best food in the world, the highest biodiversity in the world. You know, you have so many good features that it is one of the most. You know, it cries to heaven, you know, that you are suffering so much, because it is greed, you know, which has occupied, the greed of France Afrique, which has occupied your beautiful country, and done a divide and conquer policy. And so I hope you see, you know, the basic good character in all your peoples and all your tribes, and that you need to hold together. To you know, focus on the male vice, to get that out, and to clean up governance from all the greed and bribe and lawlessness and so on, you know. So I know I'm a white guy and I don't know everything about Ambazonia, and you know, we never know what the future will bring and whether, you know, victory is far or close. But you have to have an inner standpoint. You have to say a complete no to gangsters in politics. You have to say, I don't compromise with it anymore. You know, it only brings harm. Yeah, I don't take bribes from corrupt politicians. I don't. You know, you need to say that to yourself, and also say, we don't know what kind of political structure we have in the future, and politics will never be perfect. Yeah, but it can really be much, much, much better if you engage in this revolution. Because you really need to be a hardliner right now. You need to get this occupants with this genocidaire occupants out from your territory. You know, it's pure evil. And you know, my motivators is also many people in the northern hemisphere, the white people. You know, not all of them are bad. Not all of them are Nazis or colonizers or fascists or so on. You know, it's like most people just want to have a regular life, and they want to see you also free and respected and having a good life. You know, and nobody should suffer from these corrupt and greedy systems. And if only the majority in America and Europe and everywhere in the world would have more say, yeah, then I would say the BR regime would be finished the next day. Yeah? But unfortunately, we are right now in a transformation, in a global transformation, where the power is centralized very much with the super rich and with secret societies and so on. They want to make a great reset. And so unfortunately, you know, it's very, very difficult for the regular people and for the Democrats, you know, to influence power politics. And that's why we need to fight. There's no other way. It's the same call as George Washington heard when he thought to himself, we have to kick out the British colonial. You know, the same call. We have to go against any colonization. It's just not right when one people goes over there to the other people and steals everything. It's not right. Yeah, and I was so by Ambazonia, by the beauty of Ambazonia, and I want to see you people free and well governed. And for that,
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. And so, Mr. Christophe has been a very contributing key aspect of Ambazonia. So he writes frequently, he talks, he carry on. I mean, he has been a very great mind on the state of Southern Cameroon. So if you have been in so many groups, you probably may have come across his and he regularly posts on my Facebook. So if you see him, so I'm sure you should be able to recognize him. So just want to thank him for his great work, for his contributions, and so. But anyway, Mr. I think we'll probably call off the day, so then maybe we'll figure out what is bringing us the echo message out next time.
Yes. Comrade, thanks a lot. And it's really you who gives me the inspiration. And you people, the Ambazonians, you know, who have so many qualities, give me the inspiration. And I am not important, I'm just chipping in some ideas. The important players are bigger, they know better, and they are the insiders, and they are doing the fighting. These are the important people. Yeah. Okay, thank you, comrade.
Thank you
so much. That you call yours, people can do what has been done to our children in West Cameroon. I call it West Cameroon because